All right, it sounds like we have everyone. Thank you so much for participating today. Again, my name is Chris Kautzman. I do member and candidate services for the local society, CFA Society of Minnesota. Our office is in downtown Minneapolis, and we're essentially kind of a branch of CFA Institute, but each society is a separate company. So we offer some different things, and we try to help you get connected to what you need. We know that candidates need primarily, they need information and support as they work their way through the CFA program. So we're really pleased to have a whole committee of society volunteers who handle university outreach, candidate resources, and a number of things related to the exams, including running study groups and teaching live review sessions. I'd like to introduce Travis Simon, who is our lead instructor, and he'll be talking through most of today's session. We will cover a number of topics, and after each topic, we'll take your questions rather than make you wait all the way until the end. Travis, take it away.
Thank you very much, Chris, and thank you to everyone for taking the time to call into this and learn a little bit about society and what our offerings are, and just get a sense of how the relationship will progress as you move through the levels. My name is Travis Simon. I am a CFA charter holder. And as Chris mentioned, I am the lead instructor for the live intensive review classes that we'll be discussing later. I've been with the Society on the Education Committee for about 5 years now, and I've been involved in the intensive review classes since the Society began to offer them. We're going to kind of break down this session into first a brief overview on level 1 for those of you that may not know quite what you're getting yourself into or what you're interested in, and then we'll touch more on what the resources are from the society and where you can see those details, particularly on the society's website. So just a broad overview on level 1. Obviously the exam is in December. It's broken up into about 10 sections spanning a variety of topics, including ethics, quantitative methods, economics, financial reporting and analysis, which is basically accounting, corporate finance, equity investments, fixed income investments, derivatives, alternative investments, which they're really calling kind of commodities, real estate, etc., and then portfolio management. And those sections carry through to each one of the exams, which is why the CFA charter has such kind of a renowned appreciation in the overall society and how people respect it, because it is so expansive and it's a very deep dive into each one of those subject matters. People that undertake this program tend to have a good broad-based knowledge and have a great skill set. In December, what you're going to be tasked with is actually answering 240 questions that are multiple choice. So luckily you don't have to come up with the answer on spot. You just have to choose between A, B, and C. Each question will have all the information you need. You're never going to be looking back to a prior question. The other levels are a little different as you move through, but for this first one, very nice and simple. The CFA Institute does have a lot of rules in terms of what you can bring to the exam, so we advise making sure you verify, 1, what you need for identification, 2, what you can bring in. For instance, you cannot bring in a highlighter to the exam. Additionally, they have restrictions on what kind of calculators you can bring. So the Texas BA2 Plus is one, and the Hewlett-Packard 12C is a calculator. Now, because there are these 240 questions, you need to make sure you keep pace. So it's about 90 seconds per question. So these are the type of things that you'll want to be thinking about as you're preparing for the exam. In terms of job prospects, it really runs the gamut for CFA charter holders, from portfolio managers, research analysts, even some people in the wealth management or retail sector are starting to get interested in the CFA charter. That's kind of my broad overview of the level 1 and what the overall path is. Are there any questions related to that segment?
Is this on mute, or can you hear me?
Yep, everyone should be not muted, so you're free to chime in as you wish.
Oh, okay, great. So there's a morning and an afternoon session, and am I correct that the different sections of the test will be random. There won't, we won't be tested on an entire section in the morning and then another section in the afternoon. Is that right?
Yeah, so it's 2 3-hour sessions. There will be sections that kind of outline back to the points I was saying earlier, ethics, quantitative methods, etc.
Right.
You could encounter a section in both the morning and afternoon, though.
Okay, so ethics won't be in the morning and not in the afternoon. Quantitative, it will be spread out through both.
Correct.
The morning and afternoon.
Exactly.
Okay.
This will bring you to the main section that we have for candidates, and inside this are some other links. The links are also within the page. So to get to the rest of the resources, you can either hover over candidate resources, and we're going to start with exam prep, or if you're on that web page now, you can click here to learn about. I need to put us all on mute for just a second because I forgot to turn my cell phone ringer off. Hang on. All right, what a terrible host I am. Thank you for waiting while I did that. Let's go to that exam prep page now. We're going to talk through the things on this page one at a time. And obviously the very first thing that's there is today's dial-in session. Thank you all for being here. The next link down under the red up next are scholarships. You're all going to want to think about applying for that scholarship now, because we're going to be optimistic that you will all pass, and you'll want to use that scholarship if you are awarded it for level 2 in 2016. So if you've got a little time between now and September 15th, you'll want to make sure to click that link, read all of the instructions, and see the scholarship opportunity. It's like a financial aid package offered by CFA Institute. Next thing down is the live classes. Go ahead, Travis, and talk a little bit about our intensive review weekend.
Yeah, so I'm going to be talking about these live classes and then the study groups, because those are the two that I'm most intimately involved with. The live classes serve as trying to provide the candidates with the resources that they need to actually complete the exam. So the skills they need to get through those questions, those 240 questions in approximately 90 seconds. So, or 90 seconds each, I should say. So what we do is we have a heavy emphasis on problem solving during the intensive weekend. And the weekend is a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, running from approximately 9 in the morning till about 4 to 5 at night, depending on the day. There is a break for lunch. We do provide lunch, and we'll go through some lecture slides, but then we'll also break down and assign some questions and work through some problems. So you can not only work with the instructor, but there will also be your peers there that you may know from potentially the study groups. And we'll work through each one of those sections above. Now, it's not just one instructor. We do have multiple instructors that come in over that weekend, but most of them have direct experience with the CFA exams, such as myself and Josh Howard, who was the prior lead instructor on this. We will try to touch on both calculators. However, I know personally that I have the Texas Instruments BA2 Plus calculator. So most of my advice as we move through those will be on that one. However, I do have some knowledge of how to do the inputs on the Hewlett-Packard. We'll try to provide some tips and tricks. We'll also highlight some key points regarding how to address certain questions. Just things to streamline your process so that you can make that 90-second average per question. If you purchase the intensive review, you will get a mock exam, which is farther down on this page. And that is a proctored mock exam, but it's not proctored in the sense that they'll walk around and monitor that you're not cheating, but they will set the timer. You'll be able to be in a room. You'll get kind of that experience of being in the exam, which is kind of crucial because all the training in the world can be ruined by a bad exam day, or, if you liken it to a marathon, you could train and train and train and train, but if you don't get out there and do it right on that day, it's not going to be a success. So we want to make sure we stress the importance of knowing what a 3 hour in the morning and a 3 hour at the night exam feels like, and that you're prepared to do that. That's really the crux of kind of the intensive review classes. They're about $500, but you do get some Schweizer materials, and then you get what they call mind maps, which are a slide deck, and then you'll get a large book of just problems. And those problems are where we're going to pull through for the problems that we will solve during the intensive review classes.
And this is Chris, Travis. I'm actually going to jump in now and ask if you could talk a little bit about the different weightings of the topics, because that's something I know I hear come up pretty often. I know it's good advice to encourage candidates to spend time accordingly as they go based on the weight of each topic and how much it will be tested.
Yeah. The CFA Institute is actually very transparent regarding the weighting. So for level 1, ethics has about a 15% weight. Financial reporting is your heaviest weight at 20%. You also have equity and fixed income at about 10%. Alternatively, derivatives is only 5%. So when you're preparing for the exam, if something's you're just not getting it, and it's in the derivatives section, it might make more sense to reallocate that time to some of the financial reporting and analysis questions that you may be struggling with, because you know that there's a higher probability of those being tested on. And it's very clear on the CFA Institute webpage on how they're going to break down those weights. And it's also very clear within your study materials as well.
Thanks, Travis. I think that's one of the important things that we teach during our intensive review weekend is just the time management and trying to keep that part of your brain cool as you go.
Correct. So any other questions on the intensive review, the format? Typically we have less than 30 people in the classroom. So like I said, it's a nice intimate zone where you can get your questions answered. You can have one-on-one time with the instructor, particularly like when a break is taken, or there will be obviously questions flying sporadically, you don't have to wait. It actually is also very important to note that the materials that we use during the intensive review are the same materials that Schweizer uses in their Chicago intensive review. So if you were contemplating doing a Chicago trip to get prepared right before the exam, and also doing these intensive review classes here, it'll be the same materials. The big difference though between Chicago is very much lecture style, and it's a very, very large auditorium. So it won't have the same feel that we're trying to articulate here in Minneapolis. The classes are slated for much closer to the exam, so kind of in that November-ish time frame, November-ish time frame. That way you can go through the intensive review, you can get a sense of where you might have hiccups or what things you need to dedicate some more time on before you really hit December. And in those early weeks of December is when you're taking that exam.
Excuse me.
Yes.
This is Basu Hurkadli. I have a question regarding prep materials.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, you're connected with the Kaplan, right?
Yes.
So you have a bias towards their prep materials compared with other options?
That has been more of a strategic alliance because they've been able to aid with our intensive review materials. It's not that we're necessarily advocating they have the best product.
Well,
anytime you look at third-party materials, you have to remember that that is a third party's view of what the CFA Institute is testing you on. Whenever you want to know the true manner by which the CFA views it, it's beneficial to go back to the CFA text, because you will receive that with your registration. And what I've actually advocated for is that people look at some of the CFA problems that they have in the sections of the books, so that they get a sense of how the CFA will ask them the questions, not Schweizer's interpretation of how the CFA will ask a question.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yep, and additionally, you will receive through the CFA Institute a full exam as well, and that's an important thing to review.
When do we receive that?
That's released much later in the year.
Okay, and I have two more questions.
Yep.
First one is, where is this intensive course held?
It is held in Minneapolis, and I...
Perfect. Oh, no, that's fine. That's good enough. And then you mentioned Chicago. What's is the exam held in Chicago?
Nope.
Yes. Well, the exam is held in major cities all over the world.
But Minnesota is one of them, I hope.
Correct.
Yes. You can take the exam in Minneapolis. It's actually in St. Paul. Mm-hmm.
Oh, I see. Okay. Perfect. Thank you very much.
Yeah, just so we are clear, I was merely talking about an intensive review course that is offered by Kaplan Schweizer in Chicago. And
Cool.
I just want to make sure it's very clear that we are using similar materials, so you won't get a different experience.
Oh,
some people will do everything under the sun in order to prepare for these exams. And there tends to be a lot of overlap in all those third-party.
okay. Thank you very much.
Yep.
One quick question as well. I've already signed up and purchased one of Kaplan's study packages. Is this live class part of that, or in addition to anything I would have signed up for with them? As far as
I can handle that question if you want, Travis.
Yes, please.
Great. The two books that you would receive if you take an intensive review weekend, either here or in Chicago or anywhere else assisted by Kaplan, are unique to that 3-day curriculum and not available for purchase separately.
Okay. When will registration for the intensive review weekend become available, if it's not already?
Registration will open in mid-August.
Mid-August.
And the review weekend itself is likely to happen in mid-November over a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
And I'm assuming we'll just get emails, when the enrollment time gets a little closer.
Correct. Beginning in mid-August, you'll receive emails letting you know that registration is open, and registration will remain open until approximately 1 week before the class begins, because we know that there are people who study on their own up until a very late point and then decide whether or not they want to do a review session.
Chris?
Yes.
This is Josh Howard. May I jump in just for a minute?
Hi, Josh. Please do.
Okay. So my name is Josh Howard, and I was the coordinator of these classes just until this summer, where the transition was made to Travis. But I've been dealing with these classes for a long time, and I just have a couple points I'd like to share with everyone, just so you know. The first one is on prep providers. There are many prep providers available. You will probably receive emails if you opted in when you signed up for level 1 from a lot of different providers. We happen to work with Kaplan Schweizer because they do a good job of supporting our classes, but there are lots of good providers out there, especially level 1. Other CFA societies included, CFA Boston, CFA LA. There are a lot of good providers. There are a lot of poor providers who are kind of fly-by-night entities, and they might only charge $100, $200. So I would be careful before just signing up with anyone, just because it seems like a good deal. As Travis said, the most important thing is to do the work from the CFA readings. But I would be careful just signing up with anyone for test prep. Some are better than others. Schweizer is by far the biggest. That doesn't necessarily mean they're the best, though they are very well resourced and have a good connection with the Institute. But so just keep that in mind as you're looking if you want some prep materials. You definitely don't have to go with Schweizer. There are other providers out there, but just be careful of going with some, small shop, especially if they only offer level 1. And Sometimes people have bad experiences that way. The second thing I would point out is that if you join our local society, and now Chris is going to get into the difference between the Society and Institute here in a little bit, but if you join our society, we have a first-year rate that's a little bit lower than the normal rate, and Chris will talk about this, but you also get a discount on our classes. So I would strongly encourage you, especially after you hear Chris describe what our society is versus what the Institute is, to join our society if you are going to take a live class, especially if you're going to take a live class or purchase Kaplan materials, because the discounts you will get on those sometimes exceed the cost of being a society member. And a lot of times we get to the review class, and I talk about that during the review class, and people get annoyed. They're like, oh, I could have, saved money by taking the class and being a society member. So I just want to get that out there right away, that there are discounts available if you become a society member. And there is a really nice first-year rate when you become a society member. So keep that in mind. The third and final point is that if you are thinking about purchasing Kaplan Schweizer materials, especially if you're thinking about purchasing the premium or the essential package, and you are thinking about taking our class, we have a very nice bundled rate where you can get the essential package and the class at a very, very good rate, not actually much more than the essential package by itself. So I would look into that soon. Talk to Chris, talk to Travis, if you thought you were going to go with the essential package, because you can add on the class for a very, very low rate, less than the $500 it normally costs. So those are just the three things that I found are commonly brought up when the class is underway that people wish they had known. But Chris and Travis are both great resources on those three. So
real quick on that, what if we've already signed up for the essential, or actually I think I got even more than the essential packages.
Like the premium or something?
Yeah, I bought it, yeah.
Yeah, it has to be done all at once. It has to be all done at once. Just the way Kaplan, works. But we can talk offline and see if there's something you do. But it depends if you really want to take the class, because that's the bundle, the class and the materials. So
right.
Just if you respond to Chris, who organized this, she can get you in contact with me, and we can talk about it.
All right. Thanks.
So that's all I had.
Thanks, Josh. We can stop there and take some more questions if now would be a good time. All right. None being asked. Let's move down that web page slightly, and let's talk about study groups now, which are the next thing down the page.
Yep. So what you'll see if you actually have a computer on and you're on the page, what we have is the fall study group forming now. There's a nice little link there that'll lead you to a forum page. And this forum page is something we just kind of put together to quick outline the key points. One, the CFA Society does not take an active role in study groups, so we're not hosting study groups at the office Monday, Friday, etc. We are rather providing a means to connect people so that they can form their own study groups. So when you complete this form, it'll move into the response database, which there's a link to also on that forum page. And on there, you'll have the names of all interested parties, their email address, where they prefer to meet, and what days they would like to meet. We are obviously open to questions, so my email address is on that forum page. But everyone studies a little differently, so we want to make these study groups very organic and allow for people to connect with the other individuals that have similar study habits as themselves. What we would advocate, though, is not necessarily, if you want to get together and read as a group, that's fine. But what I found most beneficial when I was in a study group was getting together and going over problems that we had already done in advance. Not coming and then doing the problems together, but rather having them done in advance. We could talk through how we got to those answers and if we found any tips or tricks on how to complete those. The response database, so all the information that you've put in there will be taken down from the internet right around December, so you don't have to worry about your information being easily accessible. you do have to click that link or have access to that link to get to that data. You can't do a Google search for your name and have, you know, this database show up. It's masked from that element. If there's a specific question, feel free to email me and we'll see if we can get that answered. But the society is really more of just a resource, and we can't be there kind of pounding the table on what you need to be doing in your study groups. I would advise at the onset of your study groups, maybe come up with a long-term plan, just like you've come up with most likely a long-term plan for your exam prep. Any other broad questions? Otherwise, I can kind of run through some additional tips and tricks on how to form a study group. So a couple other comments just regarding forming a study group. If you do the assigning of problems, the one thing to remember is everyone will have CFA materials, so you can easily reference those and say, look in the text, look at section 5 and do 1, 6, and 8. Alternatively, if you find out that a lot of you have Schweizer materials, then you can start doing some of the questions from there, or, you know, wherever you're finding these problems, you just need to make sure they're shareable across every member in the group. Second, really choose a proper venue. Meeting at a bar is probably not the best idea. For those of you that work in downtown Minneapolis, the venue that I found most promising was actually the library, because you can reserve rooms at the library, and it's nice, it's quiet, there's no cost to you. It was a great environment. Also, kind of the fourth one, if you get a large enough group, you'll probably want a group leader, just someone to keep you on task. If you have 2 to 3 people, usually you can kind of have this organic discussion and work through the problems. But once you get to a group of about 5 to 10, it makes a little bit more sense for someone to keep everyone on task. Otherwise, you might talk about the weather for 30, 45 minutes, and it's not an effective use of everyone's time. Any other questions?
No. Okay. Don't be shy. If you do have questions, we'll have time at the end to go back and do some at that point. We're going to keep moving down this web page now, and as Josh Howard mentioned, I'm going to point out the section in the middle of the page for Kaplan-Schweizer materials. We will be offering a live mock exam in late November. It will cost $75 unless you are also taking our intensive review weekend, and then you get that live mock exam included for free in your tuition. At the bottom of this section, in slightly bigger text, it says, CFA Society Minnesota candidates receive an exclusive 15% discount on select 2015 Kaplan-Schweizer products. You're going to want to click on that link because it shows you what you can get for 15% off. I know that a number of people have said that their employers also help them get Kaplan discounts, but not everyone has that opportunity. So as part of our relationship with Kaplan-Schweizer, they do offer discounts to our candidates. So make sure at some point to click that link and see if some of the things you were thinking about buying can be purchased for 15% off. Below that is BSAS. That is the Boston Society. They build every year their own mock exam. You can take that as an alternative to the Kaplan-Schweizer one. Below that is the CFA Society of Los Angeles and USC online video streaming review program. They offer that at all 3 levels. It's highly, I've heard it, that it's highly revered. The length, different number of hours for each level. So you'll want to click on those links if you're interested in a good video program to watch. There are episodes, so it's not one long streaming thing, but they're individual episodes. At the very bottom of this page, we also point to a couple of other websites that I've heard and we've heard other people are looking at and using and getting resources from. One of which is the Analyst Forum, and the other of which is the 300 Hours blog. I think you could probably spend days and days poring over all of the information on both of these websites. These are global resources, people from all over the world who are taking the exams. Post questions, each other answers them. They're forums primarily, but there are a number of resources available. Basur asked about other prep providers. I think you'll find exhaustive commentary from CFA candidates who are expressing their own opinions on all of the many different kind of prep providers. If you're looking for additional materials, check out the Analyst Forum and the 300 Hours blog for information about other prep providers and people's own sort of study tips. Anybody have any questions about the resources we've got posted on our page?
Hey, good morning, good afternoon. This is Mike. I have a quick question, and I'm kind of backtracking here a little bit. I was hesitant to ask the question about the live classes.
Go right ahead.
And I understand that there will be an email coming out, and I'm not going to be kind of eligible for any Schweizer discounts or anything like that. I'm already lined up and using a competitor. But I'm just kind of wondering what the straight cost is involved with the live class weekend.
Of course, a live class weekend will be $499.
Okay. That's perfect. And I kind of figured I would learn that at some point, but I want to get that question out. And I do have one other question, kind of as it pertains to test prep providers and kind of how they. I think it was Josh who kind of mentioned it and brought it up that. It is best to look at the CFA materials to see how they ask questions or how they phrase things. And I guess I just kind of like maybe some opinion on that, from Josh or anybody else who could say, is there a difference in how a test prep provider lays out or phrases the questions versus the institute? Or is there any kind of opinion? I don't know what it'll do for me, just kind of curious on that.
There's definitely a difference between the way Schweizer will lay out a question versus the institute. Okay. And to my comments earlier, it's just because that's their interpretation of the materials and what they believe the institute is testing you on. That mock exam that you'll be supplied with from the institute, I have found when I was going through the levels, was one of the greatest resources out there for symmetries with actual exam day. It's not as though they took direct questions from there, but there were questions that looked very, very similar on exam day to that mock exam. And just going through that, I found extremely beneficial in understanding how they were going to be communicating with me, the examee.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Does that answer?
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. That really hits the right on the button. So the exam that we'll be going over in the mock exam that's part of the live weekend, is that a Schweizer exam or is that the CFA exam?
That is one of Schweizer's exams.
Okay.
So that would be in addition to the one that you'll receive from the CFA Institute.
Sure. Yeah. No. I think that is going to be important to kind of highlight the differences and know how the institute thinks versus how my test prep provider is thinking.
Correct.
So thank you so much.
All right. If nobody has any questions, additional questions at this time, I'd like to talk a little bit about our society. We are 1,300 members across Minnesota, North and South Dakota, and eastern Wisconsin. And we're the 10th largest CFA society in the United States. Such a large member base is part of what allows us to have so many resources available, including a staffed office and the classes we teach, and as many as 75 different events a year that our members can attend. And now that you are registered CFA candidates, you are you are welcome to attend any of our events if you want to start to get to know people and you want to think about joining. A really great way to decide if joining is for you is to come to a couple of things. Our event calendar is available on our website. Most of the events we offer are held live and are held somewhere in the vicinity of downtown Minneapolis. And we don't do that to exclude all of our other members, but it's simple math. More than 3/4 of our members live and work in the Twin Cities. So we do hold most of our events here. Many people who live on the outskirts or outstate or in the Dakotas choose not to join, and we understand that that's not, that's maybe not the right fit for them. But if you do live here and you're ready to start networking and getting connected and creating a network for yourself of people who are in the middle of the CFA program and who have finished the program and earned their CFA charter, now could be a really good time for you to think about joining the society and getting involved. Membership for the first year is only $25, and as Josh mentioned before, that gets you a wealth of discounts. All of our events are slightly cheaper for society members, and the $25 joining fee will actually get you $50 off the class. We know that is to your advantage, and that is exactly why we set it up this way. We have learned over the years that the sooner somebody gets involved, joins the society, and becomes an active part of this network, the more likely they are to, just succeed through the program, use the network, and advance their own careers. So if you're interested in joining the society, there's a section on our website, again, kind of right at the top there in that dark gray bar. You'll see the word join in white. You'll click on that and follow the links. We've got an old-fashioned paper application for joining just the local society. As you advance through the CFA program, eventually passing level 3 and turning in your 48 months of work experience, eventually you will be required to have a dual membership in both your local society and the CFA Institute. Primarily, you'll be required to join CFA Institute in order to get your charter. But in the meantime, we encourage CFA candidates, if you want to just use that local network, you can join the local society here in the Twin Cities. Anybody have any questions?
Yes, I had a question. This is Earl McCoy. If you haven't passed your level 1 exam, I know that it says that you have to take the self-test for standards and practice handbook. Where does one find that?
Sure. Let's go. We can go together, and I can show you right where that is if you want. Are you at a computer?
Yes.
Okay, great. Hover over the word join, and then please drop down to the top drop-down called Application Links.
Okay.
Here are the instructions for joining the society. And in step number 2, you'll see a paragraph beneath it, most of which is colored black, and one bit of which is colored blue. Self-test for the Standards of Practice Handbook is blue, and it is a link to both the chapters that you read and the online self-test.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you.
We've got just a couple minutes left. Does anybody have any burning questions they want to ask now? And remember, you can always send me emailed questions too, and I'll help you get the answers you need.